You are listening to The Strange Accounts. I am your host, Matthew Carmona. And if you've had an experience you want to come on the show, you can email me at thestrangeacctspodcast@gmail.com. Now, on today's show, we have a great story. It's going to be Shawn G, and he's going to be talking about his near-death experience and his journey during this. And I was so fascinated when I heard his story, and I wanted him to come on the show and kind of give a kind of like synopsis of his near-death experience, because so much is going on. Like, he's gone on other podcasts and talked for like hours and hours where people have asked for certain sections of his near-death experience that they were fascinated with, and he dove deeper into that. Well, we only have a short amount of time, normally about an hour, maybe an hour and a half. So I wanted him to kind of give us a kind of like synopsis of his near-death experience of everything, so that everybody could get kind of an idea of what happened during his experience. So I think you guys are going to have a lot of fun with this. I think you're going to enjoy it. So sit back, get comfortable, and let's get to Shawn G. All right, everybody, we're going to welcome Shawn G to the show. Shawn, thanks for coming on.
Well, thank you for inviting me, Matthew. Appreciate it.
Hey, man, I appreciate you coming on. So I want you to go ahead and give a shout out to your, because you already have a channel, a podcast on YouTube. So if you just want to help the audience find out where you are and where they can find you and where they can follow you.
All right, cool. I've got a YouTube channel called Chasing the Truth, Shawn G, and then I do a Saturday show on Dark Waters, radio channel over on the Paranormal Radio app, and YouTube with the same name. It's all Chasing the Truth stuff. So I do that Wednesdays over on my channel, and then ad lib it between that then and Saturday nights. Saturday nights is pretty much locked in. I do Saturdays from 7 to 9 p.m. Central. So it's interesting to do all that stuff. Live call-ins like the old Art Bell show.
Awesome. So we're going to kind of have you start from the beginning of your near-death experience and just kind of start from the beginning of kind of what happened, what led up to you having this near-death experience, and then just take us into what you experienced after that time that you were in a coma.
All right. So 2015, I was in the throes of alcoholism, and man, I had actually a pretty good job. I was over a few sleep labs, been director of sleep labs, 5 at that time. And I had a lot of stress and whatnot, and alcoholism just took over. And God decided that, hey, you're not paying attention to me, so I'm going to have to do something to get your attention. And I was not paying attention to anybody in my life. I actually pushed everybody out of my life. All my loved ones, all of my family, my friends, girlfriend, the whole shebang, just pushed them out of my life because I knew that I could foresee me having a pretty rough end. So, November 19th of 2015 was the day I had a car accident, and I was drunk driving, and I was the one that got the lion's share of injuries. I hit another car, but the driver of that car was not injured. But everything was taken care of, and I had to do some jail time, about a week or so, and then pay fines and court costs and, pay for, vehicle repair replacement and stuff like that. But the accident, I injured my left leg. A big old, deep bruise on my left shin right below my knee. And, on the 19th, I literally had to just hit my left leg to get out from underneath the dash of the car I was in. And I stumbled around and got out of that and a car wreck. And for 7 days afterwards, necrotizing fasciitis, that flesh-eating disease bug, took my leg. Literally it looked like the day after Thanksgiving in 2015. My leg looked like Freddy Krueger got a hold of it. It was just gangrene, and it literally once my sister took me to the emergency room, and my leg hit the gurney in the ER. It popped up in like a ripe watermelon.
Wow.
Yeah. So at that point, my leg was hurting like a son of a gun, and I can't remember a whole lot about that day, other than it was hit and miss in my memory. I can remember my brother and my sister being there, and the doctor saying, "I just gave you a lot of pain medication, for obvious reasons, and said name your power of attorney," which I think I named my sister at the time. And he told me I had a 30 to 40% chance of surviving the surgery, not the amputation, just making out of surgery alive. And I was like, "Well, boy, you've already went and done it. You're going to find out what's on the other side of that veil real quick." So after I said my goodbyes to my brother and my sister, I said a sinner's prayer, and then the medication took over and I passed out. And next thing I remember after that was I woke up in total darkness. Wasn't the only thing that was there was my consciousness. It was not my body or anything else. Then after that, a time passed by, and I'm not going to get into the details of what happened or occurred in the darkness or in the void. But after a lengthy amount of time, which, I screamed, yelled, tried to slap myself in the face, didn't have, couldn't scream, couldn't yell, couldn't see anything. In retrospect, I look back at it as everything that was in this world that I was attached to was literally just been ripped from me. I was being taught that, what you take in with you to heaven or hell is what you take in with you. You can't take physical things with you. Love, relationships, stuff like that you can take with you. After some time, in retrospective, kind of revisiting all my memories, out of the darkness, a big eye pops open, right in front of me, and it was a reptilian eye. And I have talked to a bunch of people about it, talked to some pastors and about this, which, what the consensus is, or what I think it was probably some sort of demon that was popping in front of me. And then that eye closed, didn't say a thing or made a sound or anything like that. And then was back in darkness. After that, another eye popped open, not shortly after, a fair amount of time. And then another one opened up, and closing, end of this story was I was surrounded like in a globe, like a Christmas globe, like I was the center of this Christmas globe, snow globe. But all around me in 360 fashion, there was these eyes opening and closing all over the place. And all of a sudden I heard this voice ask me why, asked me a particular certain question that, was so specific, so intimate. Actually, it was a place, a memory of mine that was back in high school, in a history class of mine in 11th grade. And I was cheating. I was actually cheating on a test, but the test itself, or the cheat, I didn't get caught cheating. How I was cheating, I actually wrote on a desk in pencil a couple of answers or some crap like that. But I had a old piece of cover up paper, for the actual test. It was an old note from my science course or whatever. And this voice in my head said, "Why did you write in blue ink on that piece of paper?" And I was like, "Well, that's pretty freaking specific." And I was like, "Well, I'm obviously dead." So I answered to that was all I had. And it was like being reliving that particular moment in time. It was first person. I could see my teacher at that time, grabbing a hold of that and going, "Aha, I caught you." And it's like, "Wait a minute, this is the science paper or whatever." And I said, "Yeah, that's the only thing I had left or had to cover up my test sheet." And then she handed it back to me and said, "I'm sorry." I was like, "All right, cool." And of course, I went through the whole gambit of, going through the fear and anxiety of that moment. And then, after that, I went back into the darkness, and the eyes, it was like, okay, maybe I'm doing life review. Maybe this is it. That like life review you hear about people when they, come back after a near death experience or whatever, which I didn't think I was coming back actually, but I went through almost my entire life. And the last little bit that actually got me out of the this section of the story was I used to, my now late aunt used to live in this coal camp in Southwest Virginia called Dunbar, Virginia. And, the whole community was built by the coal mining entity that was, doing the coal mining there. The whole little town. They had railroad access and feed store and stuff. And my aunt, I was like maybe 5 years old, sent me down to get a brown sack of some groceries or something. It was like maybe 100 yards from her house. I was walking down the railroad track to the feed store. And I was walking down and I could hear my feet in the gravel. And then all of a sudden I saw this little bent up Coca-Cola bottle cap. And I bent down, picked it up. And I was looking at the bottle cap and I was like, "Oh, all right." It had a little plastic rubber seal inside of it. And I was like, "Well, I'd love to have a Coca-Cola right now." It was hot and whatnot. And then all of a sudden the voice in my head said, "Why'd you pick up that bottle cap?" And then it snapped at me. I was like, 5 years old. Why would you not pick up okay, I picked up a bottle cap. One is red, different than all my surroundings, and I kind of like Coca-Cola. And then I started cussing. I said, "What in the world is this? What I'm expecting out of the afterlife?" And then I said God's name, and I got snapped out of that memory and back into the darkness, and all those eyes suddenly disappeared. After that, there was a set of eyes that was often off in the distance, and I could see these eyes attached to what looked like a lizard or a lizard reptilian, something though. Then it was standing or floating in front of this big, huge opal. If you've ever been into a big cathedral, Catholic cathedral like in New York City or someplace like that, the huge doors, this thing was about twice the size of a cathedral door. And this thing was sat in front of it. And I was like, "Well, okay, I'm obviously dead. Let's figure out what is this thing going to do to me? Make me more dead?" So I floated in front, floated. I still had my body at that time. And I got close to this entity, creature, or whatever. Didn't say a thing to me. I didn't hear it talk to me in any shape, form, or fashion. It just acted like it was, didn't want to have anything to do with me. Didn't feel fear from it or anything. So I looked at the opal and was like, "Okay, well, Fooey on you. And I looked at what he was looking at, and it had a sheen to it like a opal, not opal, a pearl coat on a white card. You know how you go around the card and you can see the shades of a rainbow in it change. It was similar to that, but it had like a galaxy swirling inside of it. So I reached out and touched it. It similar to maybe what a warm bucket of paint would feel like if you touch it. So I dipped my hand in it and was like, wow, that's just unusual. And long story short was either I tried pulling my hand out, either I was sucked into this opal or this opal, fell on me, but I was inside this thing. And it was like every sense I had, heat, cold, noise, audio, visual, you name it. I had extremes. It was either too loud or absolutely silent. The whole myriad of sensations you can have with all your senses. And I can remember getting in a fetal position because it was just I couldn't cover my eyes up because I didn't have hands at that time. Couldn't cover my ears up. Didn't have any way of doing that. So I was like, well, I got to tolerate this until whenever. Then I got used to it. And I can remember everything getting so bright. And then either I passed out for a little bit or I lost consciousness or that sounds kind of weird. But then I realized I wasn't in the void anymore. I was somewhere else. And there was this glowing entity in front of me that at that point, I didn't realize who it was other than the entity felt like a really close friend, like a loved one that you've known forever and a day. Like if you had your back to the door and say your wife walks in and you don't hear her, you don't see her, but you can feel her presence. That was what this entity felt like. And now I know what that entity's name is, but that, up to this point, that was my name for it. It wasn't a name of saying, hey, this is Buddy or whatever. The name for this entity was that feeling. It wasn't a verbal thing, but up until about 170 days ago, I referred to this entity or this angel as Bob. It's kind of a coy joke or whatever. But, instead of having to explain, hey, you remember that angel I was telling you about that didn't have a name but a feeling kind of deal. But now I know what the angel's name is after I started writing. But up to that point, this angel says, Shawn, I'm here to help you to remember being in heaven. I was like, wow, okay. Why remember? Aren't you supposed to, kind of help me along and get me, show me the ropes or whatever? No, I'm going to help you remember. I was like, all right. So at that point, it was almost like instant knowledge. Everything that I ever wanted to know, I instantly knew just like that. If I wanted to know the chemical equation of what the bacteria is on Mars, I would know that. Just random stuff just pops into my head, and anything and everything that I ever wanted to know wound up being not exclusively being right there at the tip of my tongue. It was fantastic. Now that I come back, I don't have that Encyclopedia Galactica with me. I'm done with a cold bucket, but so this angel said, I'm here to show you around, here to help you out, here to climatize you to this, but also help you to remember. And I was like, all right. So, everything I wanted to see, which, I didn't exactly see where my past relatives and ones that I already passed by that point in view or point were. I didn't go see them, but I knew where they were. I could feel where they were, and they were all fine and dandy. After this initial point, everything from this point forward to the point where I actually, my near-death experience stopped, either to my recollection, either happened all at once. It's not where I can say, well, I went to here first, or I went over there first, or I talked to this angel first, or this demon first, or whatever. It all happened all at once. And, as I'm writing, I can't feel them all like I did back in the near-death experience. But as I'm writing, I can feel like 4 or 5 different things happen at one time. And I get the feeling of what is occurring in those 4 or 5 different instances. But if I focus on something, like say that before mentioned memory of the railroad track and me being 5-year-old, everything else would kind of fade, and I would concentrate on that. But the whole thing with writing this is like I chase like a dog chasing a squirrel. So if I have a memory and I'm trying to write out this memory of me walking down this railroad track, and something pops in my head that is not totally related or not related to this memory at all, I'm off in another tangent. And it's kind of hard to sit there and write about this. And I spent the first 2 months writing, and I have my best friend, Julie. I told her about that, and she's like, yeah, that makes sense. You got to have this word vomit, deals. So don't go in preconceiving that you have to write in consecutive ideas or from start to finish. Write what comes to you, and then after everything is said and done, you start putting this together, put it in a book. Then you can edit and rearrange it how it comes out. And as soon as she said that, I was like, wow, that makes sense, and that made easier writing. But I have so many pages. Last time I counted, I'm probably up to about maybe 500 or 600 pages right now of writing. But at that point, it was I've got so many 1-page memories that I put down, and then all of a sudden that squirrel thing happens. And then I was like, okay, I can't write about this right now. I've got to go write something else. Or, I remember the memory that I had. I was writing 2 days before, and I go back and find that writing I did 2 days before, and I add to that memory I was writing about. So, but I visited God. I saw God several times. I saw a lot of angels, and then I saw hell as well. Actually, I visited him, and one of the angel that I was with, that was constantly with me up until a point I was in front of God. Then the angel, kind of exited, and I was exclusively with God. But he asked me, where else would you like to go if you had a druther? And I said, well, what's all this about hell? And this is what he said to me. He said, this is one thing that you have to realize. If you want to go somewhere in any point, time, or place, or reality, you just have to realize you're there, and you're there. And I think about that almost every day. And that one little caveat there. And I said, okay, well, let's go to hell. Next thing I remember, I was looking at this beautiful, iridescent, energy-filled environment of heaven with all these incredible souls and angels and other entities that are floating around heaven. And the next thing I know, it's all dark, and you could feel, the pain, agony, defeat, all the negative stuff that you ever want to feel. And it looked like the story of the pillars of salt. You remember Lot's wife turning into a pillar of salt? And that's what these souls there look like. They kind of, they were in like grains of wheat, fields of grains of wheat, all these standing in one another, and they just kind of swaying back and forth. They didn't have anything to them that I could say, well, this is Jane, this is Rob, or whatever. It just looked like a shadow of themselves, just swaying back and forth. And the angel said, Shawn, why don't you go over there and connect with one of them? And I was like, why? I said, well, this is part of your experience that you need to figure out why you don't need to be in hell. I was like, all right. So I actually touched 3, and there's one I don't talk about at all. I don't even think I've told anybody about that one, even in private. Yeah. But the first one was a lady that I touched, and it was like instant transfer. It was like first person. I could feel her breadth and width of her entire existence, and all she existed for was what everybody could do for her. She loved herself beyond any measure that she could possibly have. And she had a kid, and I think this happened in New York City on like an apartment complex or something in New York City. And she had a son, and he was out on the balcony, and she had an argument with her son over something. And she pushed him, and he fell over the balcony. So, and instantly she realized, that's my son. I love my son. And she leaped after him to, grab a hold of him. And she finally figured out she loves somebody more than herself, but ended her life. Now, the caveat here is she repeated that memory over and over again. It wasn't like erase it and then restart it. It was like, oh no, not again. I'm going to relive this again. It was like this pain was compounded over and over again in this lady's head, that I'm going to lose. The only thing that I finally realized I loved more than myself was her son. And I exited that, and I won't go into the other 2, but the angel said, okay, so what is the difference between you and them? And I said, well, I can still feel God. She didn't feel God. She screamed out God's name. Oh, God, help me. As she was leaping over the balcony for this child. But it fell on deaf ears. And he said, yeah, everybody here has been, removed from God's sight. They will, nothing they scream out in God's name will ever be heard by him. And I was like, wow. After that, we went back to heaven. I saw, I don't know how many. I saw so much stuff there that I don't think I'll finish writing. If I write, I try to write every day. There's been about 2 days since in the 170 days I haven't written anything. But I don't think I'll be able to ever put it in words what happened at all. From start to finish. I've had some mild arguments with. There's one guy that he's a pastor, and he said, I don't get why it will take you the entire rest of your life to write this every day. And I was like, you don't understand how much time I actually spent doing this. There's thousands, if not thousands of eons that I spent in this existence, in this near-death experience, not existence.
So time,
yeah.
like didn't matter when you were in heaven and speaking with God and being in His presence.
Yeah, time was there, but it wasn't like it was here. It was there, but it was more like a wind. But you had complete control of the wind. You can turn it into a tornado or make it go backwards, forwards, leap to a different point of view, different point of existence, and different point of time at a mere whim. You could be in one spot, say I'm here, and then all of a sudden I'm in, standing behind you, and be in both spots and take that entire existence of the, well, what's the word I'm looking for? The entire consume everything that is around me, visually, audio, the whole shebang, from 2 points of view, and be able to consume that and recollect and be able to do the whole thought process like you're two total separate people but stuffed into one, if that makes sense. I kind of dumbed it down. It was so robust, what I experienced. I could see inside of myself, I could see outside of myself, above me, behind me, see the angel that was in front of me, all 360 up and above and below him. And everything in heaven was just at an instant thought, and I was there. So it was just an awesome thing. There's parts in the Bible where they describe streets of gold, and I look at that passage in the Bible, and I could see from a perspective of, absolutely, there would be streets of gold there. Did I see them? To a certain extent, yes. It was like everything that we thought we valued here, like gold or whatever, it was trodden underneath a foot up in heaven, pave it with streets with gold. And that's more or less, I guess that's a moral point of view, but absolutely true. And all the mansions that were talked about by Jesus Christ are up there. It's so robust, so large, so endless and beautiful there. It's just, I wish I was a poet.
So you're trying to say that the being in the presence of God and just being in heaven is the most, if you could picture the greatest feeling you've ever had in your life, and times that times 1,000, and that's what you felt all the time: warmth, love, happiness, everything you could think of, pretty much.
Yeah, there was one, when I started doing my podcasting, I sought out people that had near-death experiences, and we got to compare points of view. And I was talking to this one lady. I never had her on my podcast for various reasons. I'm not exactly sure, but we both, said, "Hey, we don't have any fear of death whatsoever." And for whatever reason, I thought, okay, why do I not have fear for death? And then, bam, I remember being in front of God, having a conversation, my first conversation with God that I can remember. And I asked God, why do you allow me in front of you? Why am I not where I was in hell? All the things I said and did against your name. I literally tried to cut God out of my life. And he said, "You were just a child and you asked for forgiveness and you've been forgiven. That's why you're here." And at that point, everything just kind of clicked. I felt so belittled. I felt so loved. The whole myriad, the gambit of emotions that you could possibly have at that moment. I remember when I first had that memory just dumped right on me. And I was talking to this lady about the near-death experience. I started breaking down and crying on the phone. And she said, "Are you okay?" I said, "I just remembered being in front of God for the first time." And I look at it from a perspective of, I have had similar memories that I did not remember before. I almost have that almost daily now, writing. But I look back at it and it's like, well, how in the world did I forget that? But it wasn't, for whatever reason, God didn't took that memory from me until it was time for me to remember it. And I look at, writing this whole books. Well, it's going to be more than one book. There's going to be several books. I have no clue how many I'm going to wind up writing, but I look at it from a perspective of when I remember something, I wouldn't say new, but just recall something I didn't recall before. I look at it from a perspective of, well, it must be time for me to remember this. So, God, up to that point where I started writing, I was in such, the day I started writing about 170 days ago, give or take a day or so, I was in such a depression. Even though I had talked about near-death experiences and I didn't fear death and all this other stuff, I was in such a depression, a funk, that, my best friend Julie, I was talking to her and she said, Shawn, are you going to be okay? And I said, I don't know. I really don't know. So everything I've done up to this point, all the radio shows and being a guest, like on your podcast, talking about the near-death experience, it was like, where am I going with this? I know I am supposed to do it. And she said, well, have you thought about, meditating and praying to God about it? I was like, wait a minute. Why haven't I thought about that before? It's like having an epiphany. And it was like, I could have had a V8 kind of deal. So I said, yeah, well, okay. At that point, I was like, that sounds like the best a road to go down, because I hadn't went down that road yet. So I said, well, I guess I will talk to you when I talk to you again. And I called everybody I needed to call. And the night before, I actually did a podcast or a radio show or something about my near-death experience. And I never said anything. Well, I never said anything whatsoever about what I'm about ready to divulge. But at that point, I started praying. I guess I prayed for hours. And then all of a sudden I snapped. I was like back in the near-death experience before God. And I was, God, why am I in such a depression funk? So you have not done what you promised me you would do. I said, well, I'm doing podcasting. I'm talking about my near-death experience. So that's not enough. So what is it that you need me to do to fulfill my promise to you? And God said, you've got to write a book. I said, why? So you can only speak to so many people. A book is going to last a lot longer than you talking to, a handful of people at a time. And I said, all right. At that time, as soon as I thought about it, I was like, well, this is going to take a lot of resources time-wise, which, I was like, well, you gave me this time. This is not my time. This is your time. So that was easy to, think through. Okay, well, I spend that time because, it's not my time anyway to spend. And then I thought all the things that I would have to do to start writing about this, which I honestly never kind of contemplated it. And I kind of looked at it from a perspective of, this is going to be a lot of emotional, I'm going to say luggage or cost to me, which I went through just about everything I could go through emotionally writing this stuff and remembering everything that I have remembered up to this point. But to write that and make that decision up to that point when I was before God making the decision, and I said, okay, yes, I will, in earnest, write this out for you. As soon as I did that, the depression lifted. It was like, okay, why was I depressed? So I snapped out of the prayer, and I was no longer in front of God. And I woke up and I was like, well, that was like a ton of rocks just instantly lifted from my shoulder. And I know that, I've done podcasting and did shows on, what happened in my near-death experience. And I never said I would, there was a couple of people like James Williams, Dark Waters, that I'm associated with. He's come to me and said, Shawn, you need to write a book. And I was like, oh, yeah. I'll do that later kind of deal. Never really put any thought or effort or intent to write anything. But as soon as I got out of the prayer and I was like, yeah, I got to write this thing. I had 3 emails that were sent shortly after I started praying, all asking me, can I help you write this book? 3 from 3 separate people. And I talked to all 3 of them in email. And then there was this one fellow that's from Kentucky that I talked to. And I had like an hour or 2 conversation with him. And the next thing I knew was he gave me some tips. I said, well, I honestly, I can't write. I've never written anything in past writing papers for doing whatever I need to do in my business of sleep and respiratory therapy and stuff. I've given talks and stuff. That's easy. But I've never written anything. Where did I start? And he's like, well, I listened to your program last night. Why don't you start where you're on that train track? Write about that. See what comes out of that. I said, okay, well, what do I need to write about? Or what do I need? What material, what apps, what do I need to do this? And he gave me a few suggestions. Asked me what kind of computer I had and all this other stuff. Said, well, you got everything you need. You just need find you an app, a program to start writing. And everything kind of fell in places. Like with it, after I talked to him, 2 hours later, I was started writing the book. And I didn't stop that night until like 2, maybe 3 o'clock in the morning. And I'd written 14 pages after that. It was like zip, 14 pages right after. I couldn't stop writing. It was like this itch you couldn't scratch, but it felt better after you started writing. And I got to the point now when I wake up, I say a prayer saying, dear God, thank you for waking me. Where are we going today? Please help me write what I need to write. I'll leave it at that now, give thanks and, pray for the folks that have asked me to pray for them over the last few months. I've got actually a growing list. And I'm kind of blessed that people actually ask me to pray for them, which I'm not exactly sure why, but I'm just a old guy that had this robust experience, and I still sin on a daily basis. So I don't know why they want me to pray for them, but I still do.
Do you still, when you pray, do you still go before God? You still have that kind of like vision of you going before God?
How I start my prayer is even when I start writing, I'll get calm and quiet, and I'll say, please God, allow me before your presence. Please help me. And then I start writing. Sometimes I can't wait. I've actually woke up in the middle of the night out of dreams about the near-death experience. And I can't get out of bed fast enough to start writing. I've done that before. And then there's times when I woke up and like, I've got an idea what I need to write about. Maybe I'll write about the dream about the near-death experience, which, the odd thing about this near-death experience and me starting to write this whole thing was before I said, yes, God, I will write these books for you. I rarely dreamed. I mean, maybe once every month, something like that. It was just passing, crazy stuff like maybe I remember one occasion where I actually woke up and had a lucid dream. And how I got to a lucid dream was I realized I had a second leg. I've got 2 legs. And I woke up in the dream, and it was a weird dream that I was in front of this tire shop on the other side of the road in this trailer, which there's no trailer there. It's just other side of the road. And I opened up the door to this trailer and looked out and said, what's that Firestone shop there in Norton, Virginia? I looked down and I was like, wait, hey, I got 2 legs. And then I was like, well, this must be a dream. So I stepped down with my left leg, the one that I lost, and then I woke up. I was like, well, that's strange. That was stuff like that. But, once a month maybe. Now I dream every freaking time I go to sleep. I mean, even earlier today, I took a nap. it was like I close my eyes, and as soon as I close my eyes, I wake up inside the dream. And it's getting easier to where I have lucid moments and dreams where I realize I'm dreaming. I dream, there was points in time where I've had angels come to me, tell me things that I need to write about, tell me, remind me how to pray, which that was actually fairly good to have that conversation. And then I had a bunch of demon dreams that I had to change some stuff in my life to get rid of the demons in the dreams.
So do you think that your dreams are connected to how you're living your life today, kind of like in this reality instead of in your dreams?
I think they're messages that, these messages are saying, hey, Shawn, kind of nudge me into a point of, hey, you need to, remember this and write about it, or have this conversation with a couple, 3 angels or whatever. And I've revisited multiple times different points of my near-death experience in the dreams. And then I've had separate dreams that I could classify as a near-death experience. The last 2 weeks, I've had an occasion where I'm walking down this road totally alone, and I walk up this road up a mountain, and it's nighttime. It's not a void or anything. I'm walking, and I realize I'm in a dream. Like, okay, where am I walking to? Then occasionally I will have some person pop in front of me that's totally alive, and I have a conversation with them, and so, well, okay, I've got to go. And I've been called by one of the angels, and I wind up on top of this mountain, and I can see it was like I'm not floating, but I'm standing on top of this mountain in a 360 view of the sky, a night sky. So all the stars, you name it. The only thing is there's no moon. There's never a moon in this whole thing yet. But angels will come to me and start talking to me and say, okay, you expect to do this or expect to do that. And I've had dreams of future events, and there's actually one I've revisited about 3 times. There is about 150 years from now, give or take. And there's a big battle going on, and I wake up from this dream is like, okay, why did I have that? And not usually, every time that I have a dream, I will have some sort of confirmation that this dream content that I just had was real. I wake up from this strange dream about this battle in the future and say, okay, at that point, it's like, oh, how in the world am I going to say this happened? Who's going to come to me and say, hey, Shawn, what, this was real. Not only did that strange dream, not only was confirmed with me that it was real, it was confirmed with me twice during a 12-hour period. Within 2 hours of me waking up and having my coffee and, kind of, consuming the dream and saying, okay, well, why in the world did I have that? It was like being in I wouldn't say the video game, but being in a bizarro kind of alternate reality. And one of my friends contacted me. I talked to them on the phone, and they said, Shawn, I have to tell you about this dream I just had. I was like, okay, cool. And this person told me about this battle happening in the future from a different point of view, like they were there, but not, from my point of view. And I was like, holy crap, I was there. And I asked, so this happened in a cave? Or part of it happened in a cave? Yes, it did. I was like, and we went and exchanged different details, and it was like tit for tat. This happened, yeah, this happened, and whatnot. And I got from, I was like, son of a gun, this happened. All right. So later on that evening, I was about ready to do a podcast radio show. And another friend contacted me, Shawn, said, Shawn, I've got to tell you about this dream I had. I was like, really? Different perspective, same battle, same whole gambit. And I actually remarked about it on my radio show. You won't believe what happened. I had the strangest dream that I never thought would be confirmed, but it was not even confirmed once. It's confirmed twice. From two different people that don't know each other, other than I was the center point that connected the two dots of data there. And so, strange dreams I have every day. And do I write about every one of them? No, I don't. I get some warnings about certain things. I get some, changes in my personal life. I'll dream about, well in advance. And I have not yet. There's some stuff that I've dreamt about, like I'm waiting for it to happen, to occur, kind of stuff. But the stuff that I dream about that is relative to me in my lifetime has come in past. So, but I don't write about all of that. Actually, the angel that visits me most often in dreams actually said, "Shawn, you're going to have to quit writing about you specifically. You're going to have to write more about what you saw in the near-death experience that had nothing to do with you." So, and then I'm trying to do that in the writing, but I still have these dreams that are specific to me, but I can still see details that aren't specific to me. I need to start writing about that.
So the angel wants you to just be a more of a documentation, what you saw, what you observed,
what I saw,
kind of like
don't put any emotion in it. Don't put any kind of spin on it that I interpret it this way. This is so just write down what you saw, what you experienced, what you heard, smelled, the whole thing, and let people that read it after you wrote it, glean whatever information from it.
Almost like
that they need.
Like, for example, the books of the Bible, like how those people documented. For example, when the books of Revelation are being written, they talk about what they saw, what they observed. And that's kind of what this angel is trying to get you to do, is just, you're talking about what happened to you and what you experienced in there, but now it's time to start just putting out everything you saw and leave it, even though it may have nothing to do with you. Like, for example, this battle, you were there in this battle, document the battle. And I guess that's kind of what the angels want you to do.
Well, the actual battle, there were some events that happened that occurred that I kind of looked up. There was a total eclipse that happened during this battle. So I was like, okay, where in the future would a total eclipse happen, over most of the earth? I looked up and it was like 21 something or another. I think I actually got it right. Hold on just a second. Let me pull it up. Let me look it up. I actually got to put that in a note. 21 something or another, or 2000 something.
Yeah, because I want to go in a little more detail into this battle.
Yeah. So, eclipse. Maybe I'll put it on eclipse here. When I wake up and I can't really sit down and think what I need to write about, if I remember it, I try to make little cliff notes for myself to remember what I don't even know what it was 21 something, but actually I looked it up on a website for specifically a total eclipse that covers most of the earth, and it was in 21 something other, and it was actually to the day. And what was shown to me in that dream was the skies were red. The moon, even when it was a new moon, you could still see the new moon. So, and there were lights on the moon, like there were, civilizations up there on the moon. We built stuff on the moon. So, even during the day when you can see, you can still see the moon because of the lights from the moon, reflections and stuff. So, I actually talked to the angel about that and said, you're going to have more dreams about that particular battle. And I've had dreams about when Christ comes back. And that was just, I was awesome. It just was awesome. Spoke one word, and millions of people just vanished out of her crowd. It was just one word.
So they just vanished, like disappeared. Poof.
Poof, gone. The rest were screaming and was like, where'd everybody go? And I know I will probably be writing about that or having more series of dreams about that in the future, which I haven't had. Just had that one dream. And it only lasted just a little bit. Usually my dreams are so compressed that I've had dreams where I know of, from a clock point of view, I've only been asleep for like 3 hours. But in dream time, I'm like, it's like 2, maybe 3 days that I'm in that dream. I look at it from a perspective of where I was a sleep specialist, I ran sleep labs, ran sleep clinics, the whole gamut. And you can only be in what a lot of people perceive as a dream state, REM, rapid eye movement sleep. At most, maybe 90 minutes, maybe a little bit longer. If it's more than that, then there's something wrong with your brain. And I look at it from that perspective. Is there something wrong with my brain that, did I have a stroke or whatever that's causing me to have this kind of dream content, extra dreams or whatever? And I look at it from that perspective of if I did have a stroke, I would start seeing that, from a physical point of view. Maybe mouth drooping and that kind of stuff. But I don't think so. But if I did do that, and I needed to have this whatever event happen to me to do these dreams like I've been doing. It was like earlier today when I did all I needed to do today for me personally, getting out and doing my grocery run and stuff. Come home, laid in bed, fell asleep, and as soon as I fell asleep, it was like close my eyes, wake up in the dream. And then I wake up out of the dream and go, oh, okay, that was a short, I think I was maybe asleep maybe an hour or something like that. I had some music and whatnot playing, kind of relaxing. And I'm like, okay, cool. Just relax there kind of. And the next thing I know, I was in another dream. I have yet in the last 170 days had a night that I did not dream. And that is so strange to me. But I do remember when I was a kid. Here's something that I have not really kind of fleshed out yet. But there was this drawing I did. When I was a kid into my late teens, early 20s. I had a lot of robust dreams. I mean, to the point where I would dream about particular people, and it got to where I could sketch faces in the dream. And I found about 4 weeks ago, give or take, there was this sketch that I did in 1988 of this little girl holding a panda bear or a teddy bear with a Band-Aid on his forehead. I remember doing it up to the point it appeared in my bedroom on a table in a very conspicuous place. I was like, well, where'd this come from? I actually almost threw it away, but it was a really heavy type of paperweight. I was like, well, okay, that's strange. And I opened it up and I was like, well, where in the world did this come from? I hadn't seen this in at least 2 decades. Well, how did it wind up on my table in the middle of my bedroom, which I'd already moved, I don't know how many times. Why did it wind up on my table, which I have no clue how it did that. Up until I had a dream and the angel come to me and said, we gave you back your drawing to remind you used to have these dreams and you used to do all this stuff. This is what you were meant to do in the first place. But I made other life choices and I got in healthcare and the whole thing. And my dreams kind of went out the the window. So I was like, really? So why did I get this back again? Why this specific memory of this little girl, which at that point, I remember having a series of dreams of watching from a third person point of view, this little girl on her dad's porch, watching him with two workhorses plowing a field and playing around with the horses. And I had so many dreams of this little girl. I was 18, 1988, 18, give or take. Sketched this little girl, and I never had any interaction. It was just like I was watching a movie, watching this little girl, have fun with her dad, watching him plow fields and messing with horses. So I kind of look at it from that perspective. Was I supposed to be some sort of dream, something or another to have to do with the dreams and, divulge that in the future? Maybe. I don't know. But that was the strangest thing, to find that actual sketch out of nowhere that I actually forgotten where it was. Forgotten it actually existed, up to the point it popped up on my table in a bedroom in another house. I don't even think I never touched it in this house up until that point. That I moved back into this house after I moved out of my house, in a totally different city, in my family's home. I don't even think I remember even seeing it then. I think the last time I saw it was probably about 2 houses ago. So how it wound up, I don't know, other than the angel in my dream said, yeah, we gave it back to you to help you, to have you remember you used to dream like this.
Jogging your memory, getting you going.
Yeah, jogging your memory kind of deal. I was like, well, that's great, but you gave me a little bit of a panic attack, wondering, okay, who put this in my bedroom? Literally, there's not been anybody in my bedroom but me in the past 9 months. I'm exclusively the only person that's been in here. No family members, no anybody. So there's that kind of weirdness going on in my life. But yeah, there you go. And I kind of look at this whole near-death experience as, there's a caveat, which I don't know how much time we got left.
You keep going.
I get, okay. All right. So at the end of my near-death experience, while I was before God, and God was actually telling me, Shawn, you need to go on. And he was actually, had me going toward a new gate. Said, you need to go on, past this point of your existence. And I was like, wait a minute. Whoa. So now I've got to go help some people. And God's, every time I would pick a person out and start explaining, well, I've got to do this or that with this person, or something bad's going to happen to them. He would say, wait a moment, and their entire life will be lived, and they will be here with us. Just wait a moment. And I was like, no, that's not right. Then I move on to the second person, and then the third, and up to 8 people. I argued with God, saying, hey, I need to go help these people for X amount of reasons. And at the 8th person I argued for, I stopped and I made up my mind. I said, no, I've got to go on. I need to go back. I can't stay here. I've got to go back. And as soon as I made that decision, I felt God touch my shoulder, and I heard God's voice at that point say, this is going to hurt. And I was ripped out of heaven, and I felt myself falling. And the sensations that I had then was, I fell for a long time, and it was coming like from being in a bright room, and it progressively got dimmer and dimmer and dimmer until it was just totally dark. And I fell in what I perceived as water. And splashing around in water, and I was like, okay, well, this is different. And the thing that happened there was I could hear something, didn't feel anything with me, didn't hear anything with me, all of the other than me being in what I perceived as a cave, I guess would probably be the best explanation. It wasn't the void that I started out with, but it's strange that it finished with being in a void-like state. But all of a sudden I hear this big splash in the water, and then this raspy breathing happened. And this raspy breathing, I said, is anybody there? I just, after everything I went through, I still had no fear of what was happening in the dark. Now, that's one of the things. I have no fear of dark. Before I wanted every light on the house on when I go through the house. Before, now I don't. It don't bother me whatsoever. So I yelled out, said, "Who's there? What's there?" Yada yada yada. And next thing I know, I hear this raspy voice that said, "I didn't expect you to come back this lifetime. I have been with you your entire life, and I will always be with you your entire life." And I'll leave it at that point. And then I woke up in another hospital, way about maybe an hour down the road from where I started my amputation. Woke up in the hospital, spent 3 months in that hospital, and some strange things happened with that. So,
Who was the raspy voice?
I don't know. Now that I've written about it a few times, I think it was a demon that I invited in my life probably when I was early 30s. I wanted to be with this lady so bad. I said, "Please, God, put this lady in my life." And that lady turned out to be a witch.
You got a little more than what you bargained for.
A little more than what I bargained for. And that was just a strange thing. And I've gotten rid of that attachment or whatever, that deal I made with. It took me an entire day of praying to get rid of that thing. Once I realized that I'm being haunted again and again by this particular succubus or whatever it is. So
Gotcha.
yeah, I know that sounds like science fiction, but yeah, strange stuff. And I got rid of it, and I feel a lot better. I don't have those strange dreams or any of that nonsense. Every person that had this attachment acted the same exact way. When I did not want them in my life, they acted the same exact way. They feigned that I'm sick. Why are you doing this to me? I'm sick, kind of deal. I'm like, well, one, you're acting kind of weird, and I don't want you in my life anymore. You're just bad mojo. And they all acted the same way. Now I look back at it and had did a lot of prayer to get rid of this thing. And God showed me that, this was a demon that you invited into your life. I said, I allowed it because you prayed for it. You asked for it. And the deal was made, and I had to break the deal. And God said, yep, you're no longer responsible for this deal. And I got out of it, and I was like, holy crap. And then there was a series of people that was being affected that by this deal, because I got to the point where this demon, the succubus, was not getting the attention it needed from me. So it started messing with people that I cared for. So I had like, actually, one of them actually said, Shawn, you're putting too much into this. You can't be responsible for all these other things. It's like, well, all I can tell you is after I quit paying attention to whoever this demon was attached to at that point and stopped, once I recognized this demon was attached to this particular person and said, nope, I don't want to be around you anymore. Friends and family all had series of different things, either financial stuff happened to them, or they, got sick or had a facial stroke, or, a lot of series of things that, happened at certain points of time. I was like, that can't be all that. And God said, yep, this demon was like, well, if you don't pay attention to me, I'm going to, wreak havoc with the people that you love. If I can't touch you and get what I need from you directly, I'll get what I need from you from the folks that you love. And that was
right.
it.
I'll make you pay attention to me. I will make you
right.
by affecting the people around you that you care about to where
absolutely
you pay attention to me.
And once I did that, everything turned around for those folks that I realized that were being affected by this particular demon.
That's good. That's good. I'm glad. I'm glad it all ended out and it ended the way it's supposed to, in a positive way, and you got rid of that negativity out of your life. Now we know that voice was that whatever that creature was, it was not expecting you to come back. It's like, oh, he's gone. Oh, well, wait, you're back? So to me, that is just crazy. That mind blowing to me. Like, you have so much stuff going on in your life that you've had,
I know it sounds rather spectacular, and I've sat down and I've written so much that after I've written it, and I've only allowed a handful of people, actually the only people I've allowed to read these just little excerpts from what I've written, or a part of the 8 people I come back to help. And the strange thing is, the people that I've actually told and said, hey, I come back for you specifically, I've told 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6. Oh, let's see. I'll put all those together. Which 1, 2, 3, 4. I've told 4 out of the 8 that, hey, I come back for you. I know where 2 of them are. I know I can pick up the phone and call them. They probably say, well, who is this? But I know who they are and what their name is and where they live and the whole shebang. I have yet, the last person that I told said, yeah, you're one of the 8 people that I'm supposed to come back to help. And I have yet to have somebody say, Shawn, you're crazy. I don't want to have anything to do with you. The last person I told, I actually sat on this for ever and a day, for about maybe 3 years, that I realized that he was one of the 8. And I said, hey, buddy, you're one of the 8 that I told you stories about. And I was actually worried about he would, kind of be negative about it. He said, okay, what's your message for me? What's God's message for me? I was like, man, it don't work like that, but I'm glad that you reacted like that. So, yeah, it's just, I know it sounds kind of fantastic to a certain point, and I've actually said I talked to 2 of the 8 almost on a daily basis. And I've told them, I said, hey, I get to the point where I've written a lot of stuff and I'm like, am I crazy that I'm seeing this stuff and writing this stuff down? And I've showed them excerpts of it. Said, no, Shawn, that what you've written down sounds like you experienced it. And I don't see any kind of, you made this stuff up. And I was like, well, it feels like I made it up. Is this me, my imagination taking over? I said, no, I don't think it is. I honestly don't. I look at it from a perspective of, the angel said, you're going to see a lot of strange stuff and you just have to document. Don't put your spin on it, what you thought it was or whatever. Let whoever reads this stuff glean from it what they need to glean from it. And I've let a couple of people read what I've written, and I've had this idea of what it meant to me, and then what it meant to them was something totally different. It was a positive reaction, but I was like, well, I didn't really look at it from that perspective, but I get why you look at it from that perspective, because they're using their own filters of their life to read what I just wrote. So that makes perfect sense. So, from the perspective of me writing the first book that I will release, which I look at it from, and I've had a lot of people ask me, when are you going to, you've already been writing for going on 6 months now, maybe, give or take. I honestly don't know when I'm going to get to the point where I'll peel off enough of the text to say, okay, we'll get this, few pages out of it. I'll probably have enough to publish 3 books from, the gut feeling I'm getting to the point where I say, well, okay, I've got enough to, publish 1 book, the first one, and let that stand on its own. But I don't have a time frame in my head other than I will have a lot more writing, and I'll just peel off bits and pieces and put it into the first book. I don't know if that's going to be accurate or whatever, but I've got a lot of people that suddenly has popped in my life that will help me along writing. One of our friends actually that has read a few things, is very good at English. I can speak it, but I can't write worth a hoot. But apparently I can still write enough to where, you just need some punctuation, this, that, and the other, and change, verbiage to make it make more sense. So I was like, oh, that's cool. So everything fell into place once I started writing that, I've had resources and, people that I can fall back on and say, hey, what do I need to do? How did I write this? How did I write that? And Julie is one of them, my best friend. Talked to her. And I got to the point where I can't describe what I'm seeing to the point where I can put it down in words. And she said, didn't you used to sketch? It's like, yeah. Why can't you sketch it out? Take that momentum that you've got, the visual that you've got, sketch it out. I was like, oh, why don't you make some sense to me? So now I've got bought the material and the necessities, which I have for whatever reason for a few decades of my life. I just quit sketching, doing art whatsoever. And then I started sketching dreams the visions that I had in dreams. And it's crazy what I have sketched so far, that it actually relieves, to a certain extent, it relieves the itch to need to produce something per day better sketching it out versus writing it out. And it's cathartic to a certain point. It helps me remember quite a bit. I can, as I'm writing or sketching, I am thrust into this vision of this memory. And sometimes I'll write during it. I go into this trance and I start writing, I guess, to a certain extent. And sometimes I have I relive this memory of this near-death experience, and I haven't written a freaking thing. And then I realize, I've been out for about an hour or two. I've got V on the paper or V on the keyboard. I just written out, and I was like, all right, let's start writing about what I just saw and go from there. Some days I'll write maybe a half a page, and there's some days like the other day I wrote 15 pages, right, just spilled right out of me. And then some days, like I said, maybe a half a page, and that's all I can get out of me for whatever is happening in my life. Pops out of me, and I'll look at it from, well, at least I did try today, and God understands, to by and large, not the days that I've actually took off, that I actually had to decompress. I've had days where friends have said, Shawn, you need to quit writing. You're getting too ingrained in this. This is driving you nuts. It's like, no, you don't understand. I've got to write this stuff out. I got to do this. I made this promise. This is more than, hey, I tell my best friend, saying, hey, I got to do this for you. It's not that. It's just, I've got to do it. It's my own personal edict. I've got to do it. There's been 2 days where I actually felt bad, but it was actually that one day that I actually got rid of that demon out of my life, that I had to take care of that and get that out of my life. to break that bond and be able to not have to worry about friends and family being affected by something that I didn't really realize was affecting them by a decision I made a long time ago, way before I even thought about well, actually way before I got into alcoholism, actually, when that occurred. But to sit there and think, as there's sold contracts out there, yeah, I made a sold contract with this freaking thing, and thank God that God broke it for me. But yeah, that stuff affects everything in your life, everything. And I guess the big thing here is that I want to get across to anybody that has listened to me or will listen to me or read the stuff that I'm going to publish is God's real. God's there. This is you can look at it from a perspective of he's about finished warning us. I think the warnings are about spin out. And I know from when I woke up from the near-death experience that I would see the first at the end of the days start before I passed away. But I'm starting to see them before, in the last couple of years. And I look at it from like, why am I seeing this happen now? And then time's messed up for me. Time's always in a fast forward. I never have a day where now I can sit and say, well, this day went by so slow you could watch the grass grow all day long, and it's like snap. This morning I woke up at probably 8 o'clock this morning, and now it's 11 my time now. That was just a second ago to me. I can literally remember waking up from a dream and going and saying my prayer, and that was a second ago to me. Like when I woke up from my near-death experience almost 7 years ago, that was a second ago to me. Literally. If I could leap back in time and say, okay, I just want to go back to that. I know I had 7 years of happenings, but it was literally that time frame to me in my perspective. And I've had people say, Shawn, why don't you pray the other way? That sounds like that would be something that would just drive you nuts. And it's like, well, this obviously is a gift from God. Why would I pray a gift from God away? Whether I like it or not, whether I enjoy it or not, if it was something that God gave me to endure, experience on a daily basis, whether I liked it one day and the next day I absolutely hated it, why would I say, God, please take this from me? You gave it to me for a reason. So that's how I look at it from that perspective. And the people that actually come back and say that, I kind of like, yeah, maybe I don't need to be associated with you. Pray a gift from God away. Nope. So there you go, buddy. That's the near-death experience in whatever, hour and 15 minutes.
Hey, yeah, I appreciate it, man. Like I said, I'm kind of like, man, there's just so much I wrote down. I'm just like, I know we just don't have time to.
I can sit here. I've done two. There's this one radio show I was on for 3 hours a piece, maybe 4. Did 3 hours and talked nothing but the void, actually, for 3 hours straight. And then he said, man, you've got so much detail, and actually scared him what I was telling him about the void that I experienced. He said, I've got to have you back tomorrow. If I don't have if I got a scheduling issue, can I get you back tomorrow? Yep. And tomorrow happened in another 3 hours.
Where was that at? Because I really want to check that out.
It was Lighting the Void with Joe Roop. Lighting the Void with Joe Roop. I did two days of 3 hour shows with him, 2 of them, and 6 hours, and I barely scratched it. I know I kind of condensed everything, and I know I kind of leaped from one subject to the next within an hour's time to kind of put everything in perspective. But I'd be happy if you want to go down one specific point that you heard in your note taking. I will expand upon that ad nauseum if you want me to.
Oh yeah, man, I definitely want to have you back on because there's some stuff we can talk about. The battle, the 150 year ago, go in the future battle. I mean, there's just a lot, and I know that we don't have a lot of time to expand like that right now. So, but I definitely want to have you on the future. Yeah. So, I really appreciate you coming on and giving me the time to come tell your story. So, I appreciate that.
Well, all I can tell you is God's real. God presents himself in a way to me that says, hey, buddy, I'm still here. I'm still as real as I was yesterday. There's some times where, I wake up and go, well, is this all, this had to be a dream. This, this can't be real. And then all of a sudden, bam, buddy, I'm still here. What are you talking about? I'm real as a heart attack. But that was a weird analogy. But anyway,
we get it. So I get it, man. I get it. I appreciate it. But,
so I look at it from a perspective of I'm here to express what's happening to me and show what God has helped me to do and the struggles I do. I fully expect I'm going to fall on my face multiple times, but I'm going to use God as a crutch and, pick myself up and keep going. I think from a perspective of the folks that I have in my life that, pay attention to me from that perspective of they see me struggle, but also see me, use God to, shore up those points where I need something other than me or other people in my life, which, God put a lot of people in my life that I didn't fully expect to ever be there. Is there. So, it led me to, befriending you. So there's that.
There is that. Exactly. Started a beautiful friendship, as they say. So, but anyway, I appreciate you coming on, sir. Thank you for coming on, man.
Oh, it was a pleasure, Matthew.
All right, folks, that's about wraps up this week's episode. Again, if you've had an experience and you want to come on the show, you can email me at thestrangeacctspodcast@gmail.com. I really hope you guys enjoy this episode with Shawn G as much as I did. I'm going to have him come back on the show at a later date. We're going to be talking about diving deeply into his experience with heaven. That's just where I'm more fascinated about, and I haven't found anybody else talking too much about that with him. So I will have him back on at a later date, and we're going to be digging into the topic of heaven. So I appreciate all the new listeners that I have picked up this far and all the dedicated listeners so far that have been listening to the channel. I really appreciate it, and I just thank you. Also, I'll be posting the new episodes on the YouTube channel called Strange Accounts Podcast. Please like, subscribe, and leave a comment on what you thought of this week's episode. Now, if you're listening to the show on another podcast platform such as Spotify or Apple, I appreciate it as well if you would like and leave a 5-star review and comment, as this will help the show grow and reach new listeners. So please like and share this podcast with your friends and your families. Thanks for listening, and as always, have a good night.